All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we'll be talking about examples relevant to comparative advantage. All right, so in the last few videos, we've been talking about comparative advantage in general, okay, which has to do with the opportunity cost, okay, and what the country is willing to give up in terms of opportunity cost. Okay, so in this case, we'll take an example. So let's say you have two companies or two countries. Okay, so you have two countries, and they produce two products. Okay, so you have two countries that produce two products. All right, so country assign four workers to produce shoes. Okay, and let's say this is a total of 10 units over here for country A. And for country, this is a total of 20 units. Okay, so four workers will produce 20 units of shoes. All right, and this is shoes. So this is shoes. All right, and let's say they assign four more workers to produce appliances. So you have appliances. So in this case, you have um, 5 units of appliances. Over here, you have 8 units of appliances, say for example. Or we can go the other way around, where country A produces 8 units of appliances, and country B produces 5 units of appliances with four workers. All right. So if you look if you look this up on a graph, okay, so let's say this is your graph, this is your production possibilities frontier. Okay, you have shoes over here and you have appliances over here. And we know that when it comes to production possibility frontier, you have to factor in opportunity cost, which means as you shift your production away from shoes, okay, towards appliances, okay, the opportunity cost of producing appliances goes up. Okay, so let's say over here you have um, this is for country A. You've got 10 shoes over here, so this is shoes. And over here you have appliances, so this is appliances. So they can produce a maximum of 10 shoes with four workers or 8 appliances with four workers. Okay, so it's either or. All right, now let's say, for example, company A or country A decides to produce shoes rather than appliances, they'll be able to produce 10 shoes. Okay, so you're starting off over here. Okay, however, as they decide to produce appliances rather than shoes, okay, you have a curve that looks something like this. Looks something like this. Okay, and at this point, company A or country A have decided to produce appliances rather than shoes. Okay, however, the cost of production, the opportunity cost of producing 8 appliances is 10 shoes. Okay, so you can see over here the opportunity cost of producing 8 appliances is 10 shoes. Okay, however, since they have a comparative advantage in producing appliances, okay, notice they can produce more appliances with four workers than country B. Okay, the opportunity cost is not much of a big deal over here. Okay, because the total production is based on comparative advantage. Okay, compared to country B. And country B is the country they will trade with. Okay, when it comes to import and export. All right, country B, let's assume that you have 20 shoes over here And for country B, you have 5 appliances over here, which means as the country or the company shifts its production away from appliances towards shoes, it will be able to produce 20 shoes. Okay, as it shifts its production from shoes to appliances, it will be able to produce 5 appliances with 4 workers. All right, however, if both countries decide to produce both the products, appliances and shoes, okay, let's say somewhere halfway in between, okay, you have, okay, let's say 5 shoes and 4 appliances. So 5 shoes, 5 shoes, and 4 appliances, for example. Okay, so let's say they assign 2 workers for shoes and 2 workers for appliances. We can do the math over here. If 4 workers make 10 appliances, okay, or 4 workers make 10 shoes rather, excuse me, how many will 2 workers make? So you have 2 times 10 over 4, so you will have 5 shoes. Okay, so 2 workers will make 5 shoes, halfway in between. And if 4 workers make 8 appliances, okay, how many will 2 make? So 8 times 2 is 16. Divided by 4 is 4 appliances. All right, that's for company A or country A. All right, now for country B, again, okay, they decide to produce both shoes and appliances. All right, so in this case, you will have 10 appliances, or excuse me, 2.5 appliances and 10 shoes. Okay, so 2.5 appliances, 2.5, theoretically speaking, 2.5 appliances or 10 shoes. Okay, and let's just leave this as 2.5. Okay, usually it will be 3 if you approximate because you can't have half an appliance. Okay, but let's assume that this is 2.5 for our calculation. All right, so let's say this is a total of 12.5 in terms of units. And this one over here, this will be 5 plus 4, which is 9 in terms of units, so 9 units. All right, now if they had decided to produce shoes only, they would have produced 20 units. Okay, um, 20 units of shoes. That's for company B. Okay, however, since they decided to produce both shoes and appliances, they ended up with a total of 12.5 units, which means that they gave up comparative advantage and they ended up producing less, which means if they do trade with other countries, okay, they won't be able to supply some of these items, either shoes or appliances to other countries. All right. Um, and let's say company A or country A, they decided to, okay, invest 2 workers. Okay, so let's say this is 2 workers over here towards producing shoes. So you've got 5 workers, or excuse me, 5 shoes produced by 2 workers, and you've got 4 appliances, okay, produced by 2 workers. So a total of over here you have 9. All right, and this is a total of 9 units. Okay, so you've got a total of 9 units, and over here, okay, you've got a total of 10 plus 8, which is 18 units. All right, so this is if they assign 8 workers, 4 workers for shoes and 4 workers for appliances. If they assign 4 workers for appliances, it's 10 units. Okay, so this is 10 units, or shoes rather, this will be 10 units. And for appliances, it will be 8 units. Okay, so you can see that since they assign 2 workers for shoes and 2 workers for appliances, they ended up using less. in terms of shoes over here, okay, which is 10, if they had assigned 4 workers. And the total units is more when it comes to um, appliances. So with 4 workers, they could have produced 8 appliances. Over here, they produced 9 units altogether. Okay, nevertheless, um, when it comes to supplying appliances, they won't be able to supply um, other countries, okay, appliances, because now they're producing 4 less when it comes to appliances. Okay, so apart from that, okay, if these two countries were to allocate some of their resources, let's say if they were to assign some of the workers over here towards production of shoes rather than appliances, what's going to end up happening is, okay, over here you will have, okay, so let's say assuming that this is 10 workers, or 4 workers rather, producing 10 shoes and 4 workers producing 8 appliances. Okay, what's going to end up happening is, okay, you will have, um, let's say they assign 3 workers towards the comparative advantage area. So that will be 3 workers producing appliances, okay, because they have a comparative advantage in appliances. So rather than 2 workers producing 4 appliances, you now have 3 workers producing appliances, which means this will be 12 divided by 2, a total of 6 appliances. All right, so if they assign 3 workers, they will have, okay, 6 appliances. And in terms of shoes, because they've assigned 3 workers, you only have 1 worker left for shoes. And we know that 2 workers produced, okay, let's say 5 shoes. Okay, so 2 workers produce 5 shoes. So 2 workers, this is 5 shoes. So how many will produce, or how many units will be produced by 1 worker? So this is 5 divided by 2, which is, okay, 2.5 units, theoretically speaking. So for the calculation purpose. All right, so for calculation purposes, you have 2.5 units. So now you have 2.5 units over here, 2.5 units, and then you have 6 refrigerators. So this is 2.5, and this is 6. All right, so 6 plus 2.5, this is 7, 8.5. Okay, so this is a total of 8.5. But if you notice, okay, the total number of workers assigned towards producing refrigerators and shoes have changed, as a result of which they're now able to produce more shoes. Okay, they're able to produce more shoes compared to appliances. All right, so 2.5 appliances and 6 shoes. Whereas for, let's say over here, you have company B. Okay, company B produces 20 shoes and 5 appliances with 4 workers each. So in this case, you have 2.5 appliances and 10 shoes. Okay, so you got 2.5 appliances and 10 shoes. So now what you're going to do is figure out what's going to happen if they allocate. Okay, they reassign some of their workers towards producing either shoes or appliances. All right. So let's say they assign, okay, rather than 2 workers, they assign 3 workers. Okay, company B has a comparative advantage in production of shoes, so they assign 3 workers towards producing shoes. Okay, so they assign 3 workers to produce shoes. So in this case, 2 workers will produce 10 shoes. So 2 workers, they produce 10 shoes. So how many will 3 produce? All right, so 3 times 10 is 30, divided by 2 is 15. Right? So all of a sudden now they're producing 15 shoes rather than 10 shoes with 3 workers. And total number of appliances, okay, let's say Okay, excuse me. So this is the other way around. So this will be one worker over here. So 2.5 appliances using 2 workers. So how many will one worker produce? So you have 2.5 by 1. Okay, divide by 2. So this is 2.5 divided by 2. 2.5 divided by 2. So this will be a total of 1.25. Okay, so this is 1.25. So a little more than 1. Okay, so in that case, you have 1.25, 1.25 plus, let's say a total of, let's see over here, let me just double check. This is 1.25 appliances and a total of shoes. Okay, so we said shoes. So 1.25 appliances with 1 worker, and your shoes are 15, right? So 15 shoes. So 15 shoes, which means a total of 16.25 in terms of units. All right, so 16.25 over here, and then over here you have certain number of units for company A. If you add them up, okay, basically, and this is if you assign workers based on comparative advantage. If you assign workers, so let's say for company A, you have workers towards production of appliances rather than shoes. So let's say you have 3 workers, okay, so 3 workers producing appliances rather than 2, where 4 workers, if 4 workers can produce 8 appliances, okay, how many will 3 produce? So 3 times 8, which is 24, divide by, okay, 4, which is 6. Okay, so 6 appliances, they will produce 6 appliances. And with 1 worker, they will produce shoes. So if with 4 workers, they produce 10 shoes. So 4 workers, they produce 10 shoes. Okay, how much will 1 worker produce? So that's 10 divided by 4. This is a total of 2.5. So 2.5 plus you have 6 here, which equals to 8.5. So 8.5 over here. Okay, so 8.5. And then 8.5 plus 16.25. So we do 8.5, 8.5 plus 16.25. This is a total of 24.75. 24.75. Okay, which will be more than if they were to assign 2 workers each towards production of shoes and appliances. Okay, so that will be it for this video. On behalf of V Electronics, this is Ubay. Have yourself a great day.